Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody at church this morning. I just want to shout out a happy Rosh Hashanah to anybody. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's one of the 7 feast days that God asked the Israelites to keep, and they are God's feasts. And I think one of these days we'll probably take the time to go through and help you to understand exactly what those feast days are. As you can see, the background's a little bit different today. I'm filming from my dining room instead of at the office. I just wanted to change the scenery a little bit, so to speak. So here we are. Welcome to my home. Today I'm going to be reading from Philippians chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 1 through 13 if you'd like to follow along. So starting verse 1 of Philippians 4. Therefore, my brothers, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, that is how you should stand firm in the Lord, dear friends. I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to agree with each other in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, loyal yokefellow, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again. Rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. Present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you have renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you have been concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstance. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. I know that's quite a long passage, and there's a lot to take in there, and really I'm going to pick out a few key things throughout these passages that Paul writes to the Philippians. And right away we see whenever he writes this letter that there seems to be a little bit of a funk, or I don't know what you want to call it, maybe a schism or a disagreement between two of the ladies, and we don't know what that is. And I decided in my own head that it probably has something to do with the fact that they're trying to decide who has come up with the most unique name. They're both very unique, hard to say, so in my mind I've decided they're just going to argue about whose name is cooler. Probably not, but anyway you slice it. Paul is recognizing that there's an argument there, and I only point this out because I think it's a key application here, is that Paul doesn't take a side, right? He doesn't go into what was being said. He doesn't talk about any of those things. All Paul says is, brothers and sisters, help them to work it out. Help them to work it out. And I think we should take a good lesson for that in today's society. A lot of times somebody tells us a story, they hear something, and automatically it's true, right? We don't give people the benefit of the doubt. We don't go and talk to them and ask them for their side of the story. We just hear it and we go, ooh, that must be true, right? Where Paul doesn't do that. He tells them, hey, we're all brothers and sisters. We need to work things out. Help me in this. I love how Paul says, hey, this isn't just about me. It's all of us together. And that goes in our churches as well, that it's not just me. It's just not the lay leaders. It's not just the board. It takes everybody in the church working together, using their talents to make it work and make it work really well. So keep those in mind, but that's not even one of the main points of this passage. It's kind of a step into where we're going with all those things. So the next portion you will see in here is that Paul says, and he says it twice, he says rejoice. Right? He says rejoice in the Lord always. This is verse 4. And I say it again, rejoice. This is kind of an important sentiment for this entire chapter. Rejoicing in the Lord. If you don't know what to rejoice means, it means to show great joy or delight in something. Right? To show great delight or great joy. I think sometimes as us Midwestern, Upper Plains, good Scandinavian Christians, I am Scottish by nature, but I think we have a hard time with this, with the rejoicing aspect. We've grown up in church to think that quiet, stoic, kind of sit and listen and keep your mouth shut. But Paul tells us through God that we should rejoice in God. And it's interesting, I think if we take a moment to think about what rejoicing is, I just want to tell you a quick story. If you don't know me very well, I'm a big soccer fan. I started playing soccer when I was a kid. I'm a huge U.S. men's soccer fan. So anytime there's a U.S. men's soccer game on, I'm probably watching it, or I'm recording it so I can watch it later and trying to avoid all the scores and stuff. But in 2010, they were playing Algeria, and this is in the World Cup. In the World Cup, there's 32 countries that make it to the World Cup over 3 years of qualifying. And the first part of the World Cup is the 32 teams are split into groups of 4. And everybody in those groups play each other once. The top 2 teams in each group move into the knockout stages of the tournament. So through group play, you go down from 32 teams to 16. And in that year, 2010, the U.S. had tied their first game to England. They tied their second game. Algeria had lost one game, and they'd won one game. So Algeria sat with 3 points. The U.S. sat with 2 points. The U.S. had to win that game to advance to the knockout stages. And I happened to be at work that day. And at work, I watched the first half on my computer at my desk. And I know I probably shouldn't have done that, but sometimes you just can't help yourself. And in the second half, with about 30 minutes left to play, it was turned on in the customer lounge, and there wasn't many people in there that day. And I went in and I was watching in the customer lounge, and it was 0-0 in the 90th minute. And you don't know when the game's going to end, because in soccer, the referee keeps track of time, and there's time added on for injuries and substitutions and all these different things. In the 90-plus minute, Algeria had a shot on our goalie. Usually goalies in soccer, they save it, they lay down there, they take forever. But our goalie, Tim Howard, he hopped up and he threw an outlet pass to one of our defenders, who immediately got to Landon Donovan, who was streaking down the middle of the field. Landon Donovan ended up getting it to Clint Dempsey, one of our best scorers of all time. Clint Dempsey takes a shot on goal. There's a big save, but Landon Donovan ran the length of the field, followed up a rebound. U.S. men's national team wins the game 1-0 to get into the knockout stages. Now, the reason I tell you this story is about rejoicing. When that happened, I literally ran out of that dealership and sprinted the entire way around the building, cheering, hollering, screaming for joy about that win, because it was probably the biggest win for U.S. soccer at that time. We do it at sporting events, right? We're good at cheering at sporting events. We're good at, there's a goal and we jump up and our hands go up, or our team scores a touchdown and you see the whole crowd, they all go up and they raise their hands. But when it's time to show joy in God, we tend to be a little bit more reserved about that. And so Paul challenges us and he says, rejoice in God in all things. And I don't think it's an accident, but the next thing Paul says, the next sentence that Paul says, don't be anxious. Right? Don't be anxious in things. Isn't that interesting that when we rejoice in the Lord, the exact opposite of rejoicing in something is being anxious in something. And so when you put those two things together and they're so close, I don't think it's a coincidence that when we feel anxious, we should start rejoicing in the Lord and what he's giving to us, what he has done for us. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I go through this myself at times where I become anxious about something. Sometimes I lose lots of hours of sleep in the evening because I go to bed, I lay down and maybe I know tomorrow there's going to be a tough meeting, or I'm going to have a tough conversation with somebody, whether that's a kid or a colleague or a peer or a business thing. And man, this thing up here gets the better of me, right? I start thinking about the situation. I start thinking about that conversation that I'm going to have. And in my head, I think, okay, I'm going to say such and such, and then the other guy, he's going to say something back, and then I'm going to say this, and then he's going to say that, and I'm probably going to get mad at that point in time, and the whole thing's going to break down. It's going to be ugly, and then my brain starts, and it rewinds all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, and we do it again. And we do it again, and we do it again. And I set myself up, and I lose sleep because I'm anxious about something that at the end of the day I don't have a lot of control over. Something in the future. Something that I really don't need to worry about. And in those instances, if I just stop and rejoice in what God has done for me, things will go a lot smoother, right? They will go a lot better. And my anxiety be taken away. Paul goes on to say that we should bring all prayers and petitions to God. This is a brief point, but it says bring them to God. It doesn't say to bring them to some saint. It doesn't say to bring them to somebody who's died in Christ. It doesn't tell us to bring them to some dead family member. It doesn't even tell us to bring them to Jesus. It says to bring our prayers and petitions to God, our Heavenly Father. Jesus tells us to bring our petitions to God. A lot of times I think we worry about that and that we don't think we have direct access to Him for whatever reason, but through Christ, we were given that direct access. We were given that ability to speak to God directly, and He wants to hear from us, right? He's our Father. I don't know about you, but anybody who's a parent out there, or mother, father, it doesn't matter, but when your kids are in need, when your kids have a petition, when your kids want to talk, when they don't know what to do, we prefer that they come to us, right? We want to hear from them. We want to help them out. We want to know, what can we do to help that situation? And God's the same way. He's no different. He wants to hear our prayers and petitions. He wants to answer the prayers that we have out there. I want to reread Verse 8, it says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. We so oftentimes dwell on the negative. We dwell on the negative things in our life instead of dwelling on those positive things that God has done for us. It's so easy for us to get in that negative mindset, right? That place where we think the sky is falling and that the world's falling apart and bad things are happening. I mean, I can be walking outside one day and I got my dress shoes on and maybe I accidentally step in something that the dog left behind for me. I get it on my shoes, right? And I can either get upset about that and let it ruin my morning, and oh, good grief, the dog did something that I didn't like, and now my shoes are wrecked on the bottom, I got to clean them. Or I can just be thankful that I have a yard, and that I have a dog that I love. You maybe saw him walking by over my shoulder. See, it's in those instances where we need to see what's in front of us, all those great things that God has done for us. It says in Galatians chapter 3, He has done great things for me. Not good things, not okay things, not fair things. It says He's done great things for me. And we need to remember that. We need to remember those things, especially when we're starting to feel anxious, especially when we're starting to feel down. Let's start concentrating on the things that God has already done, those things that are out there that we see. We need to be praiseworthy and thankful for what God has done for us. We should be contented in those situations. Right? Contentedness is hard. right? Our society says more, 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 more. Gotta have more, gotta have more, gotta have more, gotta have more, right? It could be a jingle to a song. It could be a jingle to all those commercials you see. Gotta have more. Yeah, gotta have more. But that's not what Paul tells us through God. He says, be content. Be contented with what God has given to you. How many of us have gone hungry in the last 40 years of our lives? There's maybe some people there at the church watching who have never known what it means to be hungry. And I don't mean that, right, we're on a road trip and we're getting hungry. I mean 2, 3, 4 days without knowing what you're going to eat. We all have homes. We all have houses. We all have vehicles. You're sitting in a beautiful, nice church right now. Wonderful stuff, right? We should be contented with what God gives us, because He's going to take care of us. That's the beauty of our salvation through Jesus Christ, is that we know that we're children of God. And then no matter the situation, He's got us. Right? He's put us there for a reason, and He's going to take care of us. And the last thing Paul says in this chapter, the last thing, or not in the chapter, but in the paragraph, is, I can do everything through Him who strengthens me. I can't do everything by my own desire. I can't do everything through my own brain, my own stick-to-itiveness, my own hard work, but through Him who strengthens me. Right? This whole paragraphs that I've read about are all about keeping our hearts on Him. Right? Keeping our hearts to the one above, to our Father, that we should rejoice in Him. Send our prayers to Him when we're having a hard time. But even when we're having a hard time, to be contented in our situation, because He will strengthen us to do what needs to be done. I hope you guys are having a great day. See you soon. God bless.